Hello, good morning, JNUC. Nice to see nice of smiling faces in the room, drinking coffee here. Happy to welcome you on the Thursday morning. My name is Mark. I work at Jamf and have a couple of my colleagues and another wonderful person here presenting as well. But wanted to welcome you to the session, iOS Device Compliance, Strategies for Keeping Your Device Compliant in OS Updates and More. With this session afterwards, save your questions. I'll run around with the mic and we can have a conversation and Q&A afterwards. But without further ado, please welcome Jesse Dresselhaus, Chris Diaz, and Jason Pompaselli.
Morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone had a good night at the party. We're not too sleepy, hungover, whatever. Like Mark said, I'm Jesse, this is Chris, this is Jason, and we're looking forward to chatting a little bit with you guys.
Awesome. So good morning, everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about just some themes that we're seeing in retail as a whole. And we have a really great session for you today. We have our team from Publix that's going to be sharing some really cool things. But I want to talk a little bit about common deployment types that we're seeing in the retail industry. We're seeing shared device is exploding. It is becoming the most common type of deployment within retail stores. And most of the world's workers, or 80%, call it 2.7 billion people, so 80% of the workforce, don't sit at a desk. And we've been calling it deskless workflows. And in the majority of retail workers, it's that common shared device platform. By show of hands real quick, who has shared devices in their deployment currently? Yeah, that's a lot. That's a good chunk of people there. As you know, store associates rely on those devices for crucial tasks, efficient operations, and provisioning and updating these devices are often part of their digital transformation initiatives to improve retail performance. And if not done correctly, it can be detrimental to the customer and the employee experience. Retailers across the world are looking for new ways to simplify and streamline processes from the front line or from the IT admin side of the house. Now, oftentimes, when a device is out of compliance and my device doesn't work for the task I need to do, sometimes our employees feel like this. My device doesn't work. What's going on? Because because it's not within standard and I can't do it. Well, what if you could actually approach it in a different way? Now, that's what we're going to hear about today, is a multitude of different ways to be able to approach this. There's no one right way to do this, because everyone's stack is a little different. Everyone's standards are a little different on how they approach compliance. So we don't want them looking like anger. Ultimately, we want people to feel like joy. You like my little transitions there? So at the end of the day, I want to go ahead and turn over to Jesse to talk through some of the major themes that we see, that we've seen here at Jamf, and then we'll hand on over to Jason after that. So take it away, Jesse.
Cool, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
So we all know software updates and compliance and different things to get your employees to do what you want them to do. It can be accomplished in a lot of different ways, but it kind of seems to come down to, in my mind, do you want to use a carrot or you want to use a stick? Do you want to make it so that they want to do what you're accomplishing? Or something important enough that if they don't follow, you just need to come in with a hammer and you just need to make it happen. And there's room for both. And there's times and there's situations and organizations that both needs to happen. Here at Jamf, like I'll talk just briefly about an example, like on macOS. How many of you guys use Nudge or are familiar with Nudge? That kind of feels like the classic carrot or stick. Like you're encouraged to update, and I get that nice friendly message saying, hey, we got a new OS update, it's exciting, you got features, let's update. And it reminds me, and then if I hit no, I ended up on an airplane on the way home, and I can't do anything, I can't update anymore because I'm on an airplane, but now I can't use my laptop either, and that sucks. And so that's that stick that comes in to make it so that, like, okay, yep, I'm feeling the pain. And so Jamf has some things that can help out with this. Specifically, we're going to talk specifically about the mobile devices because that's the point of our session today. And this page is a page that a lot of you are probably familiar with, and it's mass actions for devices. And so we also have a new page for software updates that leverages some DDM capabilities. And so let's zoom in and let's see what that looks like. There's a couple different options you have available. You can download the update for the user. It's a nice carrot, user gets that shiny new update. They get emojis or whatever it is in the new iOS. They get all the benefits, it's downloaded, it's ready for them to go, and they can do what they want. Download it and install. It'll just do the install as soon as it's available. It's pretty heavy-handed, definite stick mentality. And then we also have download and schedule to install. And well, this could be seen as a nice stick, if you will. Maybe you put some stickers on that stick. The update will download, it'll get installed when you schedule it, and ideally you do it at like 2 in the morning or something when the users don't even care. You could also use Jamf Security Cloud, which determines what threats, including OS updates, are on the device. Things like, is it jailbroken? Did the device encounter a phishing attempt? Like I said, is it on an out-of-date or vulnerable OS? And with this data, we can then classify the device into a risk level and apply an access policy. And so what's an access policy? It's basically something that restricts access or allows access to on-prem or cloud resources for devices that are deemed at high risk. And so you create that access policy and you say, hey, we only want to allow devices who are managed devices and secured and compliant devices to have access to things like our on-prem resources or the messaging app of our choice that we use for corporate communication. And if your device becomes out of compliance, no longer secure, in a high-risk state, guess what? We open up that app on our iOS device, and it's not going to work anymore. And so is this a carrot or a stick? I suppose you could say not having access to your HR portal to do time cards is more of a stick, but you could also block things that they want access to, and that's a carrot, and this is where I abandoned the metaphor because it broke down. But yeah, that's kind of some of what we do at Jamf, and I can turn it over to Jason to talk about what they do at Publix.
Well, hey everyone. You will notice that there is supposed to be another person from Publix here. He could not make the trip due to unforeseen circumstances, so it's not like he was hungover from last night or anything like that. He couldn't make the trip. But basically, I will say this: at Publix, what I'm going to talk about is what we were doing. Now, Jesse kind of took a little bit of my thunder. My question is like, everybody uses Nudge. Well, we don't have Nudge isn't really for iOS. Our workflow is like Nudge, but for iOS. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We will be migrating over to the new system, but there was a tool that we had to put in place to close the loop on our entire workflow. That we will be keeping and moving forward because we added additional functionality. But how do we keep our devices up to date and the most current for here at Publix? So we have a couple different processes. So I'm just kind of going through the process. Okay, the OS is certified to be released. So probably like you guys, you don't release the OS as soon as Apple releases an OS. You test it, you certify it. I mean, a couple months ago, I think it was a couple months ago, Apple released a version and pulled it back 2 days later. So we don't have that problem. So what happens when we've actually decided we've certified it, it's ready to go, we've tested, we go through? Well, we do a mix of the carrot and the stick. We give we actually have them go through and and we release the actual update to the devices. So an update is available. They get a screen like this to show it. Because we've noticed, or you've probably noticed, you can't do notification through self-service if they've never opened self-service on the device. We have times where the device will be wiped out in the field. They'll either type in the password wrong too many times, so it wipes the device. We have ways of getting it, re-enrolled and reset up, but if they don't open self-service, they're never going to get a notification we send them through self-service. So we do a wallpaper change. That is allowed, and all that really is we just create There's no restrictions on this. I was about to say something, but it's a future slide. So this wallpaper just changes. There's no restriction on the device. They can use it as deemed worthy, and we will, as they use the device normally. So they go through and they do that. Then we give them that grace period that's up there, which is usually a couple of weeks. And they know that they should go when they get a chance to kind of go through and hit the update. And once they have the update, that wallpaper goes away. The device is just like it was before. All right. So, but what happens when that grace period is over? Our steps is we actually have two groups. We have the smart groups. We have the update group, and then the lockdown group. That's where the wallpaper comes from. Okay. So we just update. Okay, if this operating, if the OS is below this level, you're going to switch to the other group, and now you get a red screen. Update is required. You need to change it, and then if you notice down there, there's a restriction on the device. We take away every app on the device except for settings. Okay, so there's the stick. All right. Basically, it's a restriction. You just only allow settings. That's it. So they go through and they do their update. Okay, that's all they can do. They can't do anything else. That's why we kind of built in that grace period of like 3 weeks, and they kind of get to know that. And before we get to that, we go and we check. All right. Who's missing, whatever, and we'll reach out, send communication. You know, in 2 days, you're not going to be able to do anything on this device. You may want to work out some time to actually update it. All right? So how is this all done? So we do have smart groups. You'll notice I color-coded, they're color-coded for orange and red to go with those color wallpapers. You know, and this is stuff that you guys can do. It's very easy, and basically it's the update available group. All it is an automated wallpaper action. So if you guys didn't figure out how that wallpaper was changing, that's how it is. Because if you thought about it, groups, the only automations that we were able to do was wallpaper. You now can do it. You can do Apple Watch things for for opportunities. But it's the only thing that you can do for the automated. So the wallpaper does change there. And if you are going to do this, this is something we learned. Make sure you do not scope anything to this group, okay? We had that issue where somebody scoped an app to it, and when you're gonna go in that group and comes out, the app goes with it. Even though the group that it's about to go into also has access, it gets removed and reinstalled. But the problem is anytime that happens, any data that's connected to that app, bye-bye. So that's a little thing that we learned. So do make sure. We actually even changed the name of those groups and literally, it's in parentheses, do not use for scoping, just as a reminder. Then we also do have our lockdown group, which also has that wallpaper action, different wallpaper, the red one, you know, and the lockdown restrictions are scoped to that group, the configuration profiles, which is actually on the next slide. You know, and then we also have a third group, never adjust. So we do have some devices that are basically mission critical. We can't lock them down. All right, if these things go down, we have to go through the old workflow of constantly bugging them via email or phone calls. Let's get these devices up and running. And then the configuration profiles. So there's the deferral configuration profile, which basically is just, you know, restricts the latest certified version. So you know, restrictions, functionality, you know, defer the software update. All right, you can just basically pick which version. Then the update one actually just restricts any apps that are available. So we just make sure you just have settings, and those are under restrictions, apps, app usage, and then those two get just scoped to those individual groups that you've created. Now, here's the question. What's the big problem with this method? Does anybody have any idea? Like, what's missing? I've just explained how this whole works. Does anybody see any issue? Okay. How do the users regain access to their apps? Okay, Jamf needs to know that they did the update. Update only works 24 hours. So if they go through and they have that red screen, they run that the update, they now have to wait 24 hours, or they got to call the help desk. When the help desk logs in, hits a button, send that inventory update, and then all of a sudden their apps come back. Because now they're compliant, they come out of that lockdown group, all their apps reappear. They all freak out because they always think the apps are removed. Okay, that's the nice thing is, remember, if you do it this way where you just remove the restriction, the apps to visible, the apps stay on the device, so once the inventory is done, it's an instant return to service, not to coin Jamf's term. So how do we do this? Well, there's an app for that now. We built an app with a functionality that I'm surprised Jamf never did, to be honest. Of course, now they're probably going to do it, but that's okay. We built an app with one basic functionality, on-demand Jamf inventory update. So you open up this app, and it goes, and it just does a recon. Okay, that's the main functionality for this app. Okay? You know, it comes up here, and we figured, well, what else can we do with that? All right, we can relay information back to the user as well. Our initial version just basically you opened up the app, it did the inventory, and that was it. You just had to close it and done. But if we're sending an inventory, why can't we retrieve an inventory? Okay, so it does another command there. So since we will be moving towards the new way of doing it for the Jamf, because basically the biggest problem that we had was, you had no way of actually getting them to update, because all these devices have passcodes. But the new system has a way to take that cached passcode token and do the update. So this we will be keeping forward because this helps our help desk, all right? You have a problem with your device. You call the help desk. The help desk, what's the first question? What's your serial number? What's the asset tag number? I don't know. Okay, do you know how to get to it? Tell them the settings. Now you can just say, open up this app. It's that top number. That's your serial number, okay? I can't actually remember and depending on what type of device, what settings it is, this information changes. Also, right above that white box, it tells you, because this was originally written for the OS version, okay, that's why it says the device is up to date in OS. It shows you the version we're expecting to use, the version that's on the device, and if it's different, there is a button that shows you how to update, okay? Apple's locked it away. We can't actually press a button go into settings. You can't do that, because that's ideally what we wanted to do. Just like Nudge, you press the button, it goes right, brings you to software update. We want to do the same thing. You can't, so it just brings up a screen, says the 4 steps. Go to settings, click here, click there, with pictures and everything. But how does all of this work? How do you guys do this? It's actually very simple. One of the problems that we were having, the first issue that we had to deal with was when iOS 17 first came out, Apple took away something that we couldn't use. With iOS, iPad OS 17, you cannot ask the device what its serial number is. You can't do that anymore. So how do we get the device to know to ask Jamf to do all this information? And this is where app config comes in. And literally all it does, I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, it's kind of bad up there. But basically, all it does is it sends, it's really light here. It basically takes the serial number and puts it in app config, the serial number, and also the JSS ID of the device, because you can use those with variables. We'll put this up a little bit better when you get the presentation, because it is all there, but and then you could pull it down into the, when you install the app, if you've ever used app config, all this information goes into a dictionary on the device, and from the app you can actually just pull out this information. All right? And hopefully this is a little bit easier. In the app command, it is, the two main things is to perform an inventory and to retrieve an inventory are two simple API commands. All right? It is, and they're basically they're the same thing. It's part of classic API, mobile device commands, and then the command for update inventory is update inventory, which requires the JSS ID. That's why that's in app config. And then the inventory is, I think something's missing from the way that's written. Yeah, there's, yeah, I accidentally deleted something on that bottom budget. It is, it might actually, no, that one actually just might, that just pulls up the information, it's the mobile devices and what the serial number is. It actually does pull the actual inventory. We also then threw in a couple of other things to do, what do I want to, I'm sorry, what I wanted to say was with pulls, we had an issue where some of the apps would get stuck updating. So we threw in a step in here to also clear pending and failed commands. Okay? So it's another thing that basically we have a list of problems. Like, what can we do to add to this to make our lives easier, admins, make the users' lives easier, and also make the help desk experience much better? Okay? Because a bulk of our commands, our issues, is we would tell the help desk the first thing to do is clear any pending commands, clear any failed commands, send an inventory update, send a blank push. Those are those basic things that we all do. This app does that. So the users know this app is always on the device, okay? And it also stays on that red screen. Okay, so the settings app stays and this app stays. So once they finish doing their update, they can just open up this app and they get their devices back, their apps back on their device. Sorry. It also has, it'll check, which we just added, it'll check the different apps that are on it. Is that app, the app's the current version? And just like we have a little icon that says the OS is up to date, like we have devices for curbside pickup. Is the Instacart app up to date? Okay? Yes, it'll tell you if that Instacart app is up to date. All right? So that's what we did. If anybody does want to take a look at it, I did kind of rush over it really quick. I do actually have a device that has it on it here, so if you do want to take a look, you can kind of see how it works. But that's pretty much it. And at this point, if you guys have any questions, well, we did pretty good. 21 minutes.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry. Guys,
Hello, hello.
yeah.
There we go. There we go.
I'm assuming in your environment you're defining the lock or the background screen.
Yes.
On all devices. Okay. I was hopeful that you weren't and you had some magic on how to restore it because we're not. But
Yeah, that is what we've done. We do have some devices where it's just the lock screen.
oh, got it. Okay.
Users get a little bit better when it's just the lock screen. So what you could do is, for your orange, just do the lock screen, but for your red, you need to update, change that too. So that might be another stick. Okay, you're gonna lose your wallpaper. We all know users like that.
And I assume your devices don't leave your facilities either? Is that mostly safe to say? I'm just thinking if I was sitting next to somebody with a big red, your device is outdated, that might be a...
It's another stick. Another stick.
Yeah.
Most of the devices do stay in our environment, but there are devices that do go out, yes.
Does your app call directly to Jamf, or does it go through a backend? And if it calls directly to Jamf, how do you get credentials to the app in a secure way?
Right now, it's encoded into the app, so it's in the binary.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, and basically what happens is the account that it uses, we haven't switched to clients and roles yet, but the account that it uses is so locked down. It's read-only. The only command that it can do, the post to, is for inventory. That's it. Everything else is just read, so our security team was okay with it. It's basically what they do now.
Do you guys have experience, or is your guys' workflow in Publix to put your iPads into either single app mode or guided access? And do you have any issues with updating iOS when either of those are?
Yes, we do actually have. We've got one type of device that is in single app mode. The nice thing of that is that since it's in single app mode, it doesn't have a passcode, so updates you can push through. However, what I would recommend doing, which is what we do, is take it out of kiosk mode, do your update, then push it back into kiosk mode. And you can do that all with a script. What we do is we actually have an extension attribute that gets set, single app mode, enable or disable. And then that configuration is scoped to devices, that device type that has that extension attribute. So what happens is you can run a script saying, change this specific extension attribute to disable, then do your update, then enable your single app mode. And if you do it in that way, because one of the problems that you may have is if you update coming back, and I would recommend putting in a delay in between each of those steps so that they're actually performed in that specific order on the device. Because if you do the update, and it does that, and then it restarts, sometimes it may not connect to that network, depending on the way your network is set up. So you may need somebody to physically hit settings, Wi-Fi, that specific network. We did see that happening. That's why when we do those devices, we do that specific workflow.
Is that workflow something that you guys made? The single app mode update workflow?
Yeah, and it's just a script that actually I wrote.
Cool. I know we've developed some automations as well. If you're interested in learning more about that single app mode update workflow, stop by the industry booth in the expo hall before JNUC's done, and we should be able to show that off.
Yeah.
I'm right here. I'm gonna stop by the industry booth because that sounds exciting.
I probably won't be there, but someone else will.
So you already created the app, right? It's for Publix, but is there any opportunity that you just make the app, rename it?
Jesse,
I told him before this, I was like, we're going to have Q&A.
Yeah.
Someone's going to ask if this is open source.
Yeah.
as of right now, it is not. We do need, we should be able to at least pass out some of the code. It's just basically getting through our legal department. I mean, I'm pretty sure we, as in my team, Apple Systems Engineering, would be perfectly fine with that because we love it. We love open source and working with everybody at Jamf and any other partner areas, partnering companies and stuff, and using that information. We're perfectly okay with that, but then of course we have to deal with legal.
Also, not to Sherlock your app, but if people who thinks this is cool and wishes that they could use this in their environment, all y'all pull out your laptops right now, go to Jamf Nation feature requests, and say like, I wish self-service did update inventory in iOS. Make a feature request, share it amongst yourselves, upvote it, and that's how you get Jamf to do things. Those feature requests, we actually look at those. And so I probably just made someone mad by saying that, but whatever.
We got your back.
As I said, I was surprised Jeff never did it, but I figured, it's probably going to be one of those things that may go forward, and it's perfectly fine. You know, we'll still probably use part of that thing for its configuration for the different apps, but yeah.
Cool. Question over here.
Actually, not a question, more an input about the home screen replacement workflow. So we had also many angry users because we did this. So what we do now is we hide all the apps and we put a web clip that says "read me!" and that web clip goes to just a website that basically gives the manual how to update. Yeah.
Okay. That's actually a good idea, but we've actually conditioned our users for the most part to do the wallpaper. So, but yeah, no, for anybody else who's trying that, that is a big issue for some people. But also a lot of our devices are actually in associate hands, you know, at the retail level. Those were, yeah, we need something very obvious. And, you know, sometimes those devices are just sitting, charging. So when that lock wallpaper changes, you know, whether it is the associate that's going to be using that device, the department manager, or even the store manager, district manager, anybody coming up says, all right, why is that one yellow? Why is that one red? We should be seeing our wonderful logo on that device. We should not be seeing this warning. Customers should not be seeing that, you know, as you say that. So once again, it's a little bit of a stick.
Yeah. And the cool thing about this workflow too is that like this is super customizable for what you want your users to have.
Yeah.
And so maybe you allow your users to, they're managed, fully managed, supervised devices, but you let them, I don't know, install Spotify or like Giphy or whatever. And maybe you have an intermediary where you have that first screen where nothing goes away. But then in between the first thing and the red totally locked down just settings, like you take away everything except for email and like Safari, and nothing else is there. So like they can just do their job, but they got none of the like, I don't know, they can't play music in their stores anymore because that's gone. And so like it gives like another step.
So basically Jesse's taking that stick, putting it in water so it's bendable. To stick with your analogy a little bit.
I don't like my analogy anymore.
I actually do like it.
So I kind of have a question recommendation here with the DDM, the blueprints, as you guys roll that out and forward into the mobile and both on the Mac OS. Having an iOS update functionality in there along with running the recon as part of that DDM function would be pretty key in order to get that update immediately.
Well, actually, I can tell you, I have noticed, even if you're not using that workflow, if you do the old-fashioned workflow and you send the update, that does update sometimes in Jamf without an inventory. I have noticed that. So if you do the full DDM way, it may actually do that automatically for you. We haven't switched over to it yet. We literally just turned it on to dev last week because we read that fact about that token caching, which basically is a game changer and solves that major problem. Because if you have a device that's got passcode, you can't push it. You can push the download so that, which is what we do, so that when they actually do it, they don't have to wait for the download. They can just go straight into the install process. So DDM is definitely a game changer.
So just out of curiosity, how do you guys handle Apple IDs on your devices? Do you have a centralized managed Apple ID for that is signed into all of them, or does each user have their own managed Apple ID?
Most of our devices don't use their Apple ID. They were all just, because most of our devices are in retail and everything, so they're just enrolled into Jamf and everything is done from Jamf. They're not actually done through Apple ID. We do have users on our corporate side that do have some, and they're actually, those are one-to-one, but these are they do get this workflow, but this workflow is primarily towards our retail environment, where there is not one specific person assigned to that device. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, awesome.
I'm kind of new to Jamf. I'm in a new role at work.
Okay, we all were there.
This question may be like kind of over my head. but your app is specifically just showing information more so for the help desk, correct?
Well,
they still have to go into Jamf.
And also for the user. So basically, it's the logic I wrote was basically, so like one of the things is Instacart, those phones should have a phone number. They should have a cellular plan that goes, because they're going to go out into the parking lot. And you know, sometimes network, you may actually have network issues, so it's sort of mission critical that they have a connection, so they should have a cellular thing. When it actually pulls up, if it's an Instacart phone and there's no phone number to the device, it will actually show up a message that there's no SIM card. There's a possible SIM card issue. Okay, so if they're noticing that they're having a problem, they can just open up this app, and the associate or maybe the manager of customer service or someone else can actually open up the app, see what's going on, then contact the help desk and say, or, all right, no, there's no problem, we should be able to do it. Let's just restart the device, or, oh, the app wasn't up to date. We had one issue where some apps weren't updating because of commands being stuck in a pending state. So it's opening this app clears those pending commands, so then maybe that will solve the problem. So it solves the issue of possibly even having to call the help desk. But when you do call the help desk, it does show information that the help desk is going to ask for. And that little white box under the bottom, we could put notifications or any information that would be helpful. We actually have one of the things we just put in was an alert with an actual KB article number, so that basically when they call the help desk, they say, okay, this message is coming up, and tells them what knowledge article to go to with the problem that's on the device. So we're probably going to be putting up a bunch more of those alerts. We even went in because they asked for, some of the stores were putting the devices in low power mode because the battery was running down. You get that pop-up message, you want to put it in low power mode, and of course, nobody reads, they just click the button, it goes into low power mode. Now it's not getting notifications that there is a customer in the parking lot wanting their order. So you open up the app, it checks, are you in low power mode? And it gives you this big button, you need to come out of low power mode. Once again, that's in settings, so we can't put a button, say, to bring them to that. You have to then go to settings and stuff like that, but we're trying to do a couple things. Bless you. That answer your question? Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
There's one in the back.
For those cellular enabled devices, when they fall into the red compliance state where all the apps are removed, do you have any concerns about liability if they weren't able to call 911 in an accident or anything?
No, because a lot of those devices, they're usually physically right in the parking lot of the store, so.
Got it. Yeah, we have employees that sometimes.
That's why I said we also do have some of those that the wallpaper doesn't change. That's that third group. So if you have some sort of devices that you can't change, you throw them in that group, and then that's an exclusion. Those specific devices are excluded from those other groups, so you never change.
That's a fair point, though. If you're going to do this for like a one-to-one deployment and you wanted that lockdown group, it might be everything's gone except for settings and phone.
Right, just
right, yeah.
Liability.
That's a very good point. For us, it's not a.
I do wonder, though, if the phone app is gone, could you still?
I believe SOS still works.
SOS.
I believe
so
SOS.
Mark would know.
So I'm an MDM nerd here. If you are restricting, allowing, and disallowing certain apps, the phone app can never go away, and the settings app can never go away. So,
okay.
Safety, emergency, like it can always do calls.
Great.
Questions? Any other questions? Oh,
yes.
One over here.
Okay, just to let everybody know, we got about 5 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you for your presentation, by the way. So my question's around unsupervised devices. How much of this workflow would work for those managed but unsupervised? And then
that's easy.
Question around DDM as well. Like some of the Apple texts mentioned that DDM now just requires a phone being managed. I haven't tested that. I'm wondering if any of you have.
So your first question is real easy. It does not work. It's based off of smart groups, and you have to be managed to go into a smart group. So no, will not work. It has to be managed.
For the managed but unsupervised devices.
What won't work for the unsupervised bit is the removal of the apps. And I think the wallpaper as well requires supervision, but definitely removal of the apps, that restriction requires device supervision.
You know, just remember, for the users, they think the apps have been removed. We're just hiding them.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you just change that configuration file, the restrictions apps, that just, and we also changed the wallpaper to just show the whole thing. That is what changes it. So we don't actually remove the apps so that when they're actually come back on and they've updated, they just come right back up. It just shows up.
And then what was your question about DDM?
I forget what your second question was.
Oh, if we know if DDM works on unsupervised devices.
I don't think so.
I believe DDM in general does work on unsupervised, but I believe managed software updates as a declaration requires supervision for that.
Just one more input about hiding the apps. This also deletes all the arrangements of the icons, which is also something that the users don't like.
Well, yes, that would, if they've actually moved them around, most of our devices, we actually have a home screen restriction set up, so that's not an issue. Because once again, when it comes to retail, you have multiple people using the thing, they want the icons in the exact same spot every time, because retail associates, I mean, I was one, okay? I was in retail. They're very big on muscle memory, okay? So having those apps always in the same place, but once again, you can tell them, you know, that orange screen, you're not making any changes, you're just changing that wallpaper. You don't want us to, you know, I don't want to say that. I almost said a bad word. You don't want us to rearrange your device and remove a lot of your customization. Update when we tell you.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's that, you know, it's making that stick bigger.
Got one question in the back, and we might have time for one more after this.
Yeah.
We got an orange light.
You said that this workflow is for your shared devices. Do you do the same thing for your one-to-one devices as well, or no?
We do for some of them, because as I said, we've got that third group. Most of our devices do work off of this. We do have some groups that are not. So this does work for our shared devices, but also our one-to-ones as well. It just depends. Basically, it depends on who's going to complain and what devices are basically mission critical. Okay, our devices that are in kiosk mode, we don't do this to, because we take care of that. Because if we did that and they were still in kiosk mode, it would cause chaos. Plus, it's in kiosk mode. Nobody's ever going to see that wallpaper.
Yeah.
All right. So you have to kind of, if you're going to do this yourselves, you're just going to have to, you know, you got to customize it for your environment.
You're probably not doing this to your C-suite.
No. No. The C-suite is, there literally is there's a specific group that they're in, and that is excluded, yes.
Awesome.
And I have another question for you all. After the session, if anyone has further questions, what's a good way for people to reach out or get a hold of any of you?
I'll actually put up my LinkedIn. I don't think my LinkedIn is in there. You can reach out to me. You obviously reach out to these guys, or reach out to reach out to your rep who knows these guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Either your rep at Jamf or find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and if you obviously this is the last day of the conference. Come by the industry booth. We can talk you guys through it. Jason likes hanging out there, and so does the rest of the Publix team. We love you guys. Thank you so much for.
And if anybody wants to take a look at the app, I do actually see kind of what we kind of did. I did bring one.
Awesome.
If you want to take a look.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Give a round of applause.